is what's happening today, and now I can make some very logical decisions about how to make that better. Sometimes the answer is you're in a perfectly optimized state today, and sometimes the answer is, oh boy, there's massive room for improvement here, 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 and here. And so there's kind of three ways to get data out of the platform, and this is what CentriNet will work with you on, which is we can use the GUI, and it's got a ton of different screens and alerts and global mapping, as I was showing you before. But there's also a ton, I think 119 today, useful reports that basically slice and dice your environment by a number of different metrics. So, I might want to see all of my apps or all of my machines, or a baseline report of what kind of infrastructure I might need in the data center, just high level. I might want to look at changes in configurations or the different kind of traffic light, red, yellow, and green reports by user segments or branch offices. Or maybe I want to just see top offending machines or users based on CPU or I/O. Again, previously we provisioned resources for a worst case scenario. Virtualization gives us the ability to provision things just in time. The other good news is that when we use virtualization, especially when we apply it to the desktop, we watch it, by the way, with powerful monitoring tools, we have the ability to alert and set up service levels based on those metrics that we provision to the user. So if I SYN provision, or if I say a certain network bandwidth or latency is something to be concerned about, not a problem. We alert ourselves before that happens. So whether it's desktop refreshes or operating system migrations, or you've got some contracting or outsourcing or work from home initiatives, I think these are all great times to, again, lift up the hood of your organization and take a look around. Although it's not popular and not fun, some of the best times are when things aren't going so well. If you've got an application that just isn't playing well with others, or some performance issues, or projects that just seem like they're stuck, you can't get funding, you can't get the lines of business to take the next steps, a lot of times going in and saying, time out, let's take a look around, let's look at a population of desktops or users. We'll use that as the meaning or the route for pushing the deal ahead. It can be very, very powerful. So I know I've talked in just about one long breath for about 45 minutes there or so. I most certainly wanted to open the floor for any questions that you folks might have, either through the chat or the question window, I guess.
Yes. We've got a couple questions here. We'll go through them real quick. And if we can get to your question today, we will be getting in touch with you and answering it one-on-one. But just real quick, Tyler, how many users do you typically need to look at to get an idea of?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I would say, and it does vary from organization to organization. However, as a rule of thumb, I would use at least 20 to 25% of a population. So for example, if I had an organization with 1,000 end users, I believe we could get statistically meaningful data by taking a good look at 200 to 250 of them. In that case, just to give you, using our software, the installation and configuration of our software on a 250 user environment would be about an hour. That's the actual physical install. Now, the looking at the metrics takes a little bit longer, and there's a lot of stuff to consider. In a perfect world, I would love to answer your question, Valerie, by being able to say, well, let's look at all of them. Sometimes that's not possible, although I have seen the following. I've seen organizations who said, okay, I'm going to throw a net around all 1,000 users, and I'm going to start on such and such a date. And I know people will be out on vacation, and certain machines won't be turned on, and certain users are in flux, or whatever the case might be. So I actually end up getting 866 machines actually looked at. Those are really good projects because you get a nice cross-sampling of the organization. It's funny because a lot of companies where the project started as maybe a desktop-focused project, meaning a VDI-focused project, have actually turned into what a lot of folks are calling a desktop census. It was a census year this year. That's kind of a popular term, which is, let me just get a line in the sand of exactly where we are as an enterprise. Let's look at everyone. And we might not be thinking about VDI or AppVert or Cloud for all of these people, but at least I'll know who they are, what they have, and what they do on a daily basis. And we've seen organizations use that information simply for their hardware desktop refresh. You know, the vendor will come in and say, well, we want you to go to the following chipset and the following machine with the following, configuration, and they pulled out the reports and said, I think that's overkill. Here's why. Here's what my users have actually done, or what they do and what they consume. So that was probably a little longer answer than you like, but that's kind of what we've seen out there in the market, Valerie.
Okay. And quickly, how long does this process typically take?
Okay. So the process typically, I'll answer that in two phases. Phase number one is from an installation and configuration standpoint. Standing up our software is a fairly painless process. A few thousand users, maybe half a day. But in terms of the timeline, again, it's kind of like the first answer. We would prefer to see like at least a full month worth of usage metrics. And I'll tell you why. There's sometimes end of week, end of month, end of quarter seasonality that some organizations have. Either you're wrapping up sales or wrapping up batch files or something like that at the end of the month. We would love to capture that because any sufficiently executed assessment, I didn't need to take the highs, lows, and mediums into account. However, and the second way I'd answer your question is, while a month is ideal, we have seen an awful lot of projects where they'll stand up the software, they'll start taking a look around. You start getting data back immediately, literally first hour. And after 10 to 12 to 15 days, they actually say, okay, well, I've got enough to go on now. I'm going to continue to watch for the next 20, 30 days. But what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to roll up my sleeves and start using some of these measurements. I'm going to go straight to design. I've seen it. I've seen the high, lows, and mediums. This is normal for my organization based on what I know, based on what I see. And we're going to go straight to start, selecting some platforms or some vendors, maybe for a pilot, or maybe for a proof of concept, or maybe for, the popular term is the term bake-off, where I'll look at build A versus build B, or vendor A versus vendor B. Stratosphere is our software is a pretty powerful component because it allows you to monitor and report on, platform A versus platform B. We actually take that right into the software so that you can have two totally different builds running simultaneously, and in one console and one set of reports, I can stack one up against the other. That becomes pretty interesting as well.
Great. Thank you, Tyler. And it looks like we are about out of time, even a little over time. I apologize for that. But I would like to thank John and everybody who took the time to attend the session today. Don't forget we have 2 more building blocks of virtualizations that we'll be covering the next couple of weeks. Next week, we're very excited to have Jeff McNaught, the Chief Strategy Officer for WISE, talking to us about thin computing and virtualization hardware. If you haven't already, you can register for that or any of the other webinars that we have coming on our website at www.centrinetcorp.com, where you can also find recorded webinars of all of the sessions that we've been doing so far. If I can get in one more quick plug, if you're in the Atlanta area, Jeff McNaught will also be the keynote presenter at an in-person executive briefing at McCormick & Schmick's in Atlanta. It's called The Future of Desktop Virtualization. If you want more information on that or to register for the event, just go to our website, www.centrinetcorp.com. We're going to have a big crowd, so make sure that you go ahead and sign up as soon as possible. We'd love to see you there. And once again, if you have any questions on virtualization, anything that Tyler talked about today, please give us a call